Welcome back to another episode of Health is Wealth. And thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. And as always, I am beyond grateful and thankful from the bottom of my heart to each and every one of you who is tuning into today's episode and also tuning into this podcast. As every week, I am sharing just words and thoughts of things that I'm going through on my own journey in life in hopes that it brings you value, perhaps inspires you or motivates you. You know, maybe you hear something for the first time. Perhaps you hear something again, but see a different point of view in it. And if anything, just get a chance to know who I am and, what mission I am on in life. So thank you again for tuning in. So what I wanted to talk to you about on today's episode is make a decision. And as I listen to a lot of people who are successful entrepreneurs and such, the one biggest takeaway I get from the majority of them, right, is that decision making is the biggest factor in becoming successful. And a lot of times, what hinders people from getting to a level of success is the fact that we can't make up our minds. We can't make a decision. It is by far one of the biggest things that those who are successful have the ability to do, is make a decision, right? And it means just, making up your mind on something. And the thing that I've gathered from all this, from people who are successful, is that making a decision doesn't mean you're always going to be right. But what it means is you eliminate the time between thinking and doing to get to this end point of finding out if you're right or wrong. Because what tends to happen is, we spend a lot of time thinking, right? We're weighing out our options. We're seeing if there's a decision to be made. We're always weighing out the pros and cons, deciding if it's the right move or not, and never really actually pulling the trigger. So never really knowing for sure if the decision that we make is right or wrong. People who are successful just commit to saying, okay, this is the choice that we are going to make. And whether it's right or wrong, they can course correct from there. But being that they have this ability to make decisions quickly, they can get from the point of thinking to doing to then finding out if that decision was right or wrong. And it's not to say the decision's going to be right, but it ultimately leads them to the end point of finding out and figuring out if it was the right move or not. And if it was the right move, then they continue proceeding forward. But if not, now they know for sure, and now they can move on. So by the time a lot of people, are thinking and then eventually do, people who are successful are able just to go from one thing to the next with decision making. I think is a big important part of us moving the needle, progressing forward, right? For me in my own journey, I do believe there's a lot of what hinders my own, ability sometimes to move forward is not making a decision quick enough, going back or forth on something, deciding this, not really deciding, but thinking, too long on a decision, never really actually pulling the trigger on something and know if it's going to be the right decision or not. So I think if it's something that we can learn to do, then it can help progress us forward, right? In our journeys, wherever, we are trying to go towards, is the ability just to make up our mind and, be confident in that decision, right? It's not to say it's going to be the right one, but it's going to save a lot of time, this dead space in between, thinking and pondering and doing in action. There's a lot of this dead space that's just caught in between where there's no progression happening whatsoever, because it's the one thing that holds most of us back, from just constantly moving the needle and pushing things forward, is the ability to go from, thinking and actually doing. So I made up in my mind here, right? Recently thinking about this a lot, is that I'm just going to start making decisions. I'm going to stop spending less time thinking about it. And it's not to say you shouldn't have a moment to where we're thinking if a decision is going to be right or not, but it's just to say that, we can gather as much information as we can and just gather enough to say, okay, let's make this decision and just be confident in it. And if it's the right decision, that's great. And if it's not, then we know now our answer. And now we can make another decision to see if that's going to be the right thing or not. And I'm trying to do this myself. And I'm doing this right now through some things, that I have decisions to be made on. And so, I have some things that I'm going through, in the sense of like some financial decisions that I'm making right now, right? All in to help better my own journey right now to get to financial freedom, et cetera, et cetera. I'm telling myself, okay, I need to make a decision on this based off of that, and I need to make it now. So, as an example, I'm making a lot of different decisions to sell a bunch of stuff right now, right? There's a side of me that's saying, maybe I should or shouldn't sell this thing. Maybe I do or don't want this or whatever it is. But I'm telling myself right now, like my ultimate goal is financial freedom. My ultimate goal is to get to my 5-year plan. And so as of last week, I just made up my mind on certain things. Okay, right now I'm making a decision to get rid of this thing, and that's it, right? And I'm hoping what this will lead me to is just to get better at stop thinking about things so much and just start doing them, right? You can only think so much about something. You can only gather so much information on whether this thing is the right move or not. There's nothing that's ultimately going to tell us better than to make up our mind on something, then to make a decision, and then to course correct from there. And again, that's one of the biggest things that people who are successful have the ability to do. Because if they think too long on something, then nothing ever happens. There's no way to move forward. There's no way to move on to the next thing if we're stuck in this state of just thinking about something and whether or not it's the right choice, or not. And so, I think if I can help myself get better at that, I can help myself become more decisive, spend less time in that state of just, I wonder if I'm making the right move or not, to just, okay, here's the pros, here's the con, boom, let's do it and move on to the next thing, and see if that was the right move or not, because you're never going to know until you know. That's the biggest point of all of this. But we lose so much time just thinking about something and not actually doing it. And I think sometimes that's worse off than just, thinking about it for a minute, doing it, and then getting the wrong answer. You know what I mean? Because I know ultimately sometimes we try to make a decision and we try to sit on it for a while because we want to know that we're making the right moves. And I get it, right? Like we don't want to move too fast because we don't want to make the wrong moves. But sometimes I think we just have to, right? We have to realize that time is going fast. Things move fast in life, and we spend too much time in the thinking state and not doing. It can be worse off altogether because we lose all time not knowing for sure, than ultimately just saying, okay, let's make this move. Bam. Okay, that wasn't the right one. Now we know though, so let's move on to the next, And I think ultimately that allows us to move on quicker to other things and spend less time in the contemplation of stuff. So the message here for today is, right, is make a decision, right? And this is me talking out loud to myself, is to make up your mind, make a decision, feel confident in whatever it is in the decision that you are making, enough to pull the trigger on it, right? I think most times we do have enough information gathered to know whether this could go this way or it could go that way. But ultimately, there's no way we're going to know until we do it. A lot of times, we're just hesitant, A lot of times, of course, we don't want to make the wrong decision. But if there's one thing I've come to understand from people who are successful, it's not that they don't ever make the wrong decisions. People who succeed in life don't always get it right every time. But I think it's this whole idea that I hear that success loves speed. And people who are successful move quick. They don't stay stuck on one thing, right? They're constantly moving from here to there, from this to that. And that's why the ability to make a decision quick is part of that, which will allow us to become successful. So again, for my own journey right now, it's part of what I'm really learning to do. And I've taken, that in these last couple of weeks and really implemented in a lot of different things that I've been kind of sitting on, things that I've been going back and forth with, things that I've been uncertain of. And I'm just going to hold myself to it to be like, hey, Steve, you have to make a decision. Whether or not it's the right one or the wrong one, we'll find out. But we won't be able to know until we make a decision. So, I hope I can just continue that and just see, and hopefully that just allows me to be more confident just to go, make that decision, which, ultimately over a few decisions I've made over the last couple of weeks. Like I said, financially, I've been paying off some debt. I'm taking care of a lot of things like that so I can better my future for myself with financial stuff. I'm just making certain decisions on things that I need to do to improve that, things that need to go, things that I can do away with, things that are just taking money out of my pocket and not putting money in my pocket, etc. And before, where I was kind of just, on the fence about certain things, I'm just like, okay, make a decision. And I've done that the last couple of weeks with certain things, and it feels good. I think it feels good if you can be decisive, because it shows you have a confidence enough in yourself, not to, again, to know for sure that the answer is right or wrong, but just to know that you can make a decision, and whether it's right or wrong, feel confident enough that you'll course correct from there, right? I think the whole part of us sometimes not making up our mind or being able to make a decision is we're just too unconfident with our own self. We don't trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves to make a good or bad call, right? And so I think the more that we can become decisive, the more we can train our brain to be like, hey, this is what we do. We decide fast. Whether it's right or wrong, we'll figure it out. If it's the right one, bam, we hit it on the nail. If it's the wrong one, bam, we'll move on to the next thing, and we'll try the next decision to see if that works out, And I think the more we can do that, the more we build up that confidence just to make a decision quick, so that we can move on to the next thing and not just get stuck in this state where nothing's ever really happening because we're just thinking and not doing. So that goes it for this week's topic here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as always, and we will see you on the next one.